You are listening to the Ornation Podcast, the show about Orna, Orns, and ornate jewels of creation. I am Omnis, and I need that salutation from my man Vito.
Oh, a traveler here? Salutations, gentlemen. Modangy, how do you feel about that jewel of creation? Do you think it's ornate enough?
Oh, dude, that's not. It's barely an ornate. I reckon it's a 171, right? Like it's just cuspy.
How
It's a
did
little
you
bit
guys
cuspy.
know? It was a low ornate. I just got it like 30 minutes ago.
That's
Dangy,
fantastic.
welcome to the Ornation Podcast.
Thanks for having me. This has been a long time coming. I listen to your guys' podcast. You do a sensational job. I used to run one with Shabash back in the day. It's not nearly as professional as this setup that you guys have. It's fantastic to listen to, and I'm just jacked to be here. Hello, all. Hello, the All Nation people out there. Excited.
Well, welcome to the Way Vessel.
Yeah.
What did you think when Vito finally added that little outro thing, the like "Welcome to the Way Vessel" or "See you at the Way Vessel"? I loved when he started doing that.
Mate, any little like call outs to either the Orniverse or, I don't know if it was a slight nod to some of the stuff that we used to put in the intros of the old Arisen podcast. I used to always say in there, coming to you live from Australia through the power of a way vessel. But I love that stuff. It's fantastic.
So
Actually,
good.
the first time he did it, it was in a bonus episode, and I had to make sure that he kept doing it.
Yeah, brilliant.
So
Yeah,
very,
way to
very,
cast-
very cool.
Way to cast Reanimate Dead on that outro. I really appreciate it.
We actually, Joe, didn't I steal it and use it in a main episode before the rest of the listeners had heard it? Yeah,
It was
loved
well stolen. It was well stolen, my friend.
Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. Whenever there's just like little cool verbiage for hosts.
Yeah.
But all right, well let's get right into the stuff. Dangy, I assume that everyone who listens to this knows who you are, but do you want to just do a quick like what are you about? What are you playing in
Yeah.
Orna?
Yeah, definitely. So my name is Dangy. My character's name is Modangy. That's what it always was on social platforms too, but people just started calling me Dangy. So it's sort of stuck. I am the community manager at Northern Forge Studios, so the studio that makes the games that this podcast is about. I've been playing Orna, the GPS version of our game, for 5+ years now. I've been one of the long-standing diehards, if you like. Yeah, it was just always something that I did as a hobby, and much like yourself, Omnis, I started from Pokemon Go. I was playing that. I was pretty hardcore sweaty into it. I was doing raids all the time with mates, spending a good $30 every time I went out to go and, get the best
I know
IV
those days. Yeah.
raids I could. Get the candy, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, like Pokemon Go kind of like run its course for me a little bit. I got to level 40. There wasn't like much for me to do.
The candy
And
What
got
was your
too
team?
rare.
Yeah, well, these days, definitely, right? But also just sort of like wasn't quite hitting the community aspect that I was seeking, I guess. It was a little bit more competitive, a little bit more brutal out there in the lands of Pokemon Go. I started looking around for other GPS games and just stumbled upon Orna in the Play Store. And I gave it a crack, and my God, I couldn't believe that a game existed out there that hit on some of the things that I just truly love from my time growing up gaming. I used to be a Super Nintendo Final Fantasy player back in the day, which I think a lot of people around our vintage are. And I managed to find a game that has that feel, captures that excitement, but it's GPS as well, which is something that I'm just addicted to now as a gaming style. I couldn't believe it. So I found it, I think, in one day. Back then as well, it was not easy to get XP and stuff like it is these days. But I think I just got to like level 50 in a day. I told some friends about it. And then they jumped on, and I've got friends that I started playing with back 5 years ago who still play today. It's the best, man.
That's
We
cool.
just get in a car. We take turns driving. We drive to dungeon spots. We get our snacks and our energy drinks and just drive around talking shit and playing Orna, and it's great fun.
I got
So yeah,
I got so excited listening to you talk about that on the Arisen podcast. Like that just
yeah,
sounds so freaking fun. We had our own thing with the Rift breaks, but God, it sounds like you had the life there for a bit.
dude,
And you still doing it
I
all
do it
these years later?
periodically. It's like people have kids now. I have kids. Like it's sort of like changed a little bit. We
Yeah.
grew a little bit, I guess. One of my friends who I started with, we do fairly regularly catch up. Shout out Thieg if he listens to this. We still catch up fairly regularly. We're great friends, and it's still the same. Like if we go out, the intention is like, oh, let's just even try for an hour or something, and then 5 hours later, I'll go out, and Jen's like, okay, I guess you're not having dinner with us tonight. I'm like, no, I'll be home. And sure enough, give her a phone call later on. Might be a little bit late tonight. Because yeah, we just and the thing that's crazy with it is like we're not even going far. I live in rural Australia. There's 3 towns near me, and we just like go slowly around and hit every dungeon spot and just sort of like stop at gas stations for snacks and just keep going. And it's the best, man. So fun. And yeah, that
We
predated
we need to
party
take a
play even.
trip to Australia and
Mhm.
just go for like. Can we just come? We'll go do these car rides, and then the next weekend we'll swing over to New Zealand and check out Hobbiton.
Dude, how cool would a world tour be, right? Like going
Yeah.
around and just playing the different styles. I do tell people if I ever get the chance, like people I know in person who have started playing it, I'm like, you have to let me show you how to play Orna properly. Because that's in my head. That's how you play Orna properly. You go around, you move, and you just like talk shit and have fun. But yeah, that's a massive derailment from like, who am I? Why am I
That's who
here?
you are.
Well,
Yeah, it's who I am.
we ask the important questions here on the Ordination. So when you're doing this with your friends in the car, salty snacks or sweet snacks?
Ooh, see, this is a tricky one because I always proclaim to be somebody who doesn't like sugar that much, right? So
Okay.
if I had the choice out of savory or sweet, I'd go savory like 9 times out of 10.
Okay.
My big problem that makes me look silly when I say that though is that I guzzle this energy drink called Blue V, and that's not available anywhere else in the world. It's a drink from New Zealand, and although it's blue, it's actually passion fruit flavor, and it is the best energy drink I've had anywhere. I've been to North America and tried a bunch of different energy drinks, been different countries, tried different energy drinks, and Blue V, there's something about it. I don't know if you guys ever watched the show Futurama when you were growing up. There was this snail, Slurms Mackenzie, or a slug, I guess. I don't know if you remember that episode. There's this thing about Slurm and how addictive it is. That's what I think of when I think of Blue V. So I go savory, but I guzzle this drink that has just too much sugar in it as well.
There you go. There's your balance.
That's it.
Makes
That's
sense.
it.
Makes
Life's about
sense.
balance. That's right.
All right. Well, before we move on to the other stuff, I do want to ask you, what was your Pokemon Go team? Were you blue, yellow, or red?
So I was blue. I was blue because I bought blue when I was 8 years old, saved up all of my money,
We can still
and
be
bought
friends.
Pokemon Blue. Yeah. What, you guys were red, yellow?
I was
Red.
Team Valor, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was Mystic, I was blue. And as far as who was on my team, if I had my choice, it would just be full of Machamps. Marchamps.
Yeah.
Like I just love that dude. He's the
Machamp
best.
was one of my first hundos. Like I
Wow.
was busing to work, and I was actually kind of annoyed because there was like a Kyogre raid that was going to spawn right at the transit center, but I missed it by like seconds because it just kept hitting lights, and so then I missed the whole pile of downtown Bellevue raiders. So I was all annoyed, and then someone messaged me like, "Did you get the 100% Machop?"
Yeah.
And
What?
I was practically right next to it,
Oh man.
and then I was just like, "Hell yeah!" And like,
That's sick.
yeah, so fond memories. But me and my nephews and my brother, we were all Team Valor, and we have a saying that like any color is fine except blue.
Okay. Well, I'm on the other
Well,
side of the world, so is there some
yeah.
kind of like concession for it being opposite down here?
I
Nope, you
think
blew
it
it.
actually is. It's because in the US, the blue is like way more popular, like
Right.
drastically. It's like 60% of the country is Team Blue. But I think
Gotcha.
it's different in Australia where you have a whole different swing. You might actually be the red of Australia as far as we know.
Yeah.
Blue's
I
new
don't.
red.
It's really hard
But
to remember specifically the blues because I always remembered the guys that were taking gyms off me more than the guys that were adding
Yes.
to the gyms that I had. So we had some competition, fierce competition, I would say, between some yellows and reds out there. But yeah, I don't remember what the spread was very well, to be honest.
Yep. But anyway, dang it, it's so cool to have you on, and I think almost anyone who's been on the Discord, is seeing this stuff. You're in a lot of ways, you're kind of the voice of Nothran Forge.
Nothing.
Had anyone done that before we started saying it on the show? Was that a joke in the office or anything? Where like
there's a well-known trait of us employees at Northern Forge that we can't spell anyway. So
ANYW. Sorry.
yeah, there had been jokes made early days. I mean, like when Nothran was in the game early days, everyone just made it out like Odie just misspelled Northern and just sort of like stuck with it.
I love it. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I think like that joke's been made countless times, but it's a fantastic one. I love it, and I have an affinity for the Nothrans, so I think that's brilliant. We really should have been Nothran Forge.
At some point, I want to bug Coven and be like, I want another hoodie, but can I get one that says Nothran Forge? I just want the parody hoodie.
Yeah, that's
but
sick.
anyway. Was there anything else that I know we kind of rambled there for a little bit, but any
Yeah.
more dangy info that you want to drop on the listeners?
Yeah, so I didn't quite answer your question. I just did my typical ranting and rambling that I do. But yeah, I've been a player of the game for a very long time. I hovered around the Discord. Much like a lot of our players, they sort of hit a point where they can't quite work out a thing. So they go looking to try and find answers. So I joined the Discord to try and work out. I think I was around tier 7 trying to work out what gear to use. So I joined the Discord, been around it for a very long time. So again, around 5 years. And then sort of never left. I really enjoyed the community aspect of Orna, be it with my friends in real life or just talking to other people who really loved the game. Early days of Orna was so vague. You didn't know anything. There were no details about anything. And I know that's a complaint still today, but there's so much more detail in the game than there used to be. We had to work it all out, and that was something that we were just doing every single day. So I was around for a long time. I think a couple of years in, I got made a moderator, which was my introduction into headaches with the community.
Yeah.
And then
aspirin is now a regular Amazon delivery every week.
And then yeah, one day Odie decided to make this thing his full-time gig. So he started a studio, advertised jobs, and advertised a community manager job. And at the time, I was in a completely different job. I was working for government doing statistical analysis, but I really enjoyed this game. And I was like, you know what? I got to just give it a shot, I guess. So I applied, and I sent Odie a DM and said, would living in Australia count somebody out for applying for or successfully getting the community manager role? And he replied, I would think not. I was like, okay, that's enough for me. So I put in, and yeah, got the job. And then my life kind of changed. It's weird. Now I work for a video game, and it's the oddest thing to explain to people ever. When you say, "What do you do for work?" I'm like, I work for a video game that I love to play. So yeah, this me now. I'm the community manager, and it's been a hell of a ride.
Dude, that's awesome. But on the subject of community, that feeds right into our icebreaker, which is what has been your best interaction with the community. And I want to save Dangy for a minute. He just got to talk. I want to let him savor this one for just a minute. Vito, do you want to go first on this?
Man, I don't know. So for me, this is kind of a sort of a tie. And I have a feeling that I may be taking one of your picks, Omnis.
Okay.
I got to give, obviously, I'm going to say that my biggest pick has got to be the monthly Orna meetup here in Seattle. It's just a bunch of lads sitting around a table, talking crap, and drinking beers or waters or starries, which is it's lemon lime. It's like 7-Up. But that's mine. Sometimes we play more Orna, sometimes we play less Orna. Sometimes we try to power level people. Sometimes we're just kind of showing off goofy ass builds. Sometimes we decide to start a podcast. It's it could be anything.
That did officially happen in a meetup.
One time there was a guy who did these these craft version of like all our sprites, and it was absolutely delightful.
I
Fans are
got
rad.
one of those, like from that guy. Coven
Yeah.
brought it for us. It's sick.
Badass Killington. Here.
He stopped showing up right before I did, so I do not have a cool Omnis patch.
Yeah, he stopped playing. He went on. He was. He wanted to spend more time on real life because he was talking about running for mayor.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
So, well, I would go do mine, and so I still, to this day, after doing the first show, I kind of casually was just like, hey, if anyone happens to have the name Omnis, because I was the Omnis at the time.
Right.
And so after doing the first episode and then before the second episode came out, I got my name from the community. Was mind-blowing to me. And I still, that was just kind of insane. And so I loved it. Still not going to say who specifically helped me out, but a second shout out for how awesome they are.
That's
So-
awesome.
Here,
Was
here.
it Omnis who helped you out, perhaps?
Well, Dangy, what do you have been doing this for much longer than me. I imagine you've got to have some cool interactions with the community.
Yeah. And this question, it just makes me run through all of the amazing different memories I have. I could call on some from when I was just a player. So prior to becoming a moderator and community manager, I ran a kingdom. It started with just my friends, but we also migrated over a bunch of people who played Pokemon Go. So it ended up being about 30 people that we all knew locally.
Frost
in this
trolls, right?
kingdom. Yeah, the Frost Trolls. That's right. And the reason they were called the Frost Trolls is because the Frost Troll was the hardest freaking enemy in the world back in the day. They used to just like ravage us. So yeah, the Frost Trolls. So we started that, and that was sick. It was also weird and intense because the game draws like a lot of passion out of people. So you start to get these weird politics that you don't expect, but such a cool, surreal sort of story to have all of these people that we knew in this kingdom. And we started doing really well. And it was odd because we're just in this little country town in Australia. So that was fun. But then that kingdom eventually, as we grew, attracted more high end game players, I guess, highly passionate players. And eventually we merged with another really successful kingdom, which was called, I think, Fork in the Socket at the time. And then yeah, so that's when Trolls in the Socket became a thing, and everyone knows what the acronym for that is, and that's why it was funny and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, that was unreal. We had a whole bunch of people from across the world who were like-minded, all like pretty laid back, casual, but also really competitive. It was nice. It was fantastic. And that was kind of my first dip into community stuff where I was trying to manage it, I guess. And that was amazing. Since being community manager, the thing that I'd probably say most notably, and I should preface it with, our community is sensational. We get compliments every single day from people. Sure, we get complaints, but they get drowned out largely by how positive and lovely our community is to each other and to us. It's something special working for this studio. But when we implemented the ORN, which is the Orna Representative Network, and my wife gets credit for that name because I was trying to trying to do the government thing of working out a funny acronym and then fitting the words into the acronym.
The backronym.
Yeah, backronym, exactly. But that has been one of the biggest deals for me personally, because prior to the ORN, I was reading everything every day, trying to make sense of it, trying to like work out what the consensus was, and it was really difficult, to be frank. It was really hard. People push and pull in different directions, but also because it was kind of just a me on community interaction, it didn't necessarily feel nice for the community either, because there's only so much one person or two people can listen to. So once we implemented the RN, things have felt so much nicer, easier to pass through as well, to like look through and see what the genuine priorities are from people, and everyone that's involved in that, from the content creators and the guys that have been there long-standing, guys that are cycled in, guys that are cycled out. It's just been sensational. I love having that there. And Havel in our studio gets credit for coming up with the idea to have a community committee like that. It's amazing. I love it. But that does feel like shortchanging all of the positive, amazing community interactions that I've had. That's just sort of an example.
For sure. Speaking of the ORN, how many times since adding us have you considered kicking me out of it?
It's
5,
usually
6?
daily, I think. Maybe
okay.
a couple of times a day. Yeah, it's pretty frequent.
Okay, I was just curious. I was like, I want to know how thin the ice was all.
Oh yeah, you're barely skating.
Love it. All right. Well, so listeners, this is also going to be your icebreaker. We're going to be getting back to comments after this. So what is your favorite interaction with the community? Could be your kingdom, could be the Discord community, could be just local chat in Orna, whatever it needs to be. Hit us up on Spotify, and we're going to be back to comments next week. But now let's talk a little bit of news. And so I'm personally excited. Dang it, I want you to know, I was going to try to peer pressure you into telling me where I was at on the tower leaderboard, because I've been so desperate to know. And so the fact that Odie announced, I think it was like a Reddit post, I believe, that he's like, oh, by the way, these things are coming. I was like, okay, I guess I'm not going to, I'll wait. I can wait a couple more weeks or whatever it'll end up being. But man, I wanted to know where I'm at on that leaderboard so bad. So I'm real excited about this. I know we've got like Dirk, who's a super fisher. There's a lot of people who just want to know where they're stacking up. So Vito, do you have a leaderboard you're most excited to find out where you're at on?
Yeah, man, I want to know where I'm at on the Travelers Guild. Like, I got kind of deep into the Pokemon minigame. I've spent Proofs of Anguish. I've spent Proofs of Traveling. That's the one that I'm curious about. I want to see where I stack.
Nice.
And I think once the leaderboards come out, I think I'm going to get bitten by the bug, and I'm probably going to wind up grinding it. Who knows? I'm just writing checks at this point. Who knows what'll bounce?
Dangy, do you have a leaderboard? I mean, I assume you could probably ask Odie and he would tell you. I don't know if you have direct access to it all the time, but is there a leaderboard where you're kind of curious where you stack up?
Not particularly. I've never been hyper competitive. It takes the fun out of it a little bit for me. I get competitive with myself, but not necessarily against others. So not particularly. And you guys would be shocked to find out that Odie treats me no different to the rest of the player base. I don't get special treatment. I remember the first time I saw him in person, I had this issue where I had done over 10,000 dungeons since completing the quest to get the Old Northern crown, and still hadn't got a secondary Old Northern crown. So I was face to face with the man saying, can you please check? Just check if there's something that says that I haven't completed the quest or something. There's something going on here. He's like, it'll be fine. It's okay.
It'll be fine.
So yeah, that's just to say I don't get special treatment. But yeah, guild leaderboard wise, I think the only one that I would probably, if I was playing it the way that I was when they came out, would have been the towers. Because I was absolutely smashing those. I've got all 5 towers to full. I've got like 8 celestial weapons. I've got every celestial class. I went nuts on towers. I really like the format of that content, that I can play it without having to rely on other people being available. I don't need way vessels. Once you build your towers at home, you can do it while you're watching a TV show or whatever. So
Yeah.
towers for me would probably be the guild leaderboard that I would be most interested in for sure.
Well, I haven't done a lot of towers for the past couple of weeks, so I'm probably maybe dropping myself down on the ranks a little bit. But
Now's your chance,
this is
Dangy.
all.
Now's your chance.
But now we're all getting excited. So the Conquerors Guild has been in the works for 75 years. I forget how long it's been in the works. It's been a while. But it's finally coming. Dangy, how excited are you for the Conquerors Guild?
Mate, I don't even think it's just me, but the studio in general. This has been one that originally was talked about like 7 or 8 months ago, while we were going through the guild revamps or the guild introductions last
Yeah.
year. And Conqueror's Guild was on the list of guilds that we wanted to do. So we've had it in mind for a long time. I think if I'm tracking correctly, this is Odie's third full rework of it. So he's done builds, then seen feedback both internally but also speculative feedback from people in the community. There's been a couple of threads started about it, and it's caused us to revisit some things or add things in. So it's been a long time coming. We currently, and I don't know exactly what date this podcast goes live, but we've just started doing closed alpha with our ORN and our translators. So the ORN includes some of the content creators. You guys have access to that. So we're doing light early testing, and we plan to do patron alpha and an open beta with everyone. But this is so exciting to finally be here. My goodness. Yeah, long time coming.
It feels like we've finally conquered the timeline.
Yeah.
Oh, God. I hope so.
After watching a bunch of Marvel stuff, we finally have the sacred timeline that includes the Conquerors Guild. But yeah,
Q2 2024.
it's been really fun to start exploring it. It's the first alpha that I've been a part of. And so to like get into it, and I'm one of the few people in the Orn who I think are fairly mobile. So I've been one of the few people who actually have taken control of quite a few settlements and been able to see some of those interactions. So it's been cool to kind of bust around. Like I had an errand to run the other day, so I went out and kind of hit a whole different area, took over some settlements, and so it's I like it's just a fun thing to do while you're moving around, and it's way more exciting to me than the normal exploration and just like, oh, I knock out Vito and then he'll knock me out tomorrow, and then Wyvern Hand will knock out him and then I'll knock out Wyvern Hand, and we just have this weird shuffle that I often end up I don't care about it that much most of the time. Vito,
Well,
what are your initial thoughts?
I'm pretty excited for the updated reward schedule. It's kind of a like daily cash out now,
Yeah.
as opposed to yesteryear, I should say. It was more of like a kind of a trickle, right? Like it's like one soul rate I can get excited about, but it's every month, which makes it less exciting.
Yeah.
So this
go ahead.
This definitely speeds it up a bit. Do you want to say some more about that, Dengy?
The rewards is such an interesting one to sort of touch on. So, like, for clarity for anyone who hasn't heard of the Conquerors Guild, we have talked about it a bunch of times before, but it's essentially a reworked system. We have the territory control and exploration that exists currently that players can or cannot participate in if they want to, and this new system is called Conquerors Guild, and it'll give you the opportunity to either stay with the old system if you want to, do a combo of both systems, or just migrate fully over to this new system. And you're right, the rewards from the old system, it essentially boiled down to nearly like, do you enjoy competition or do you not enjoy competition? It wasn't really significant enough to chase just for the income rewards from territory control, nor from exploration. It was an old system, so it's been there since the dawn of Orna, basically, when material acquisition, gold Orn acquisition was all much lower. So it made a lot more sense. The tiers at the start of the game, it only went to like tier 5. So the rewards just didn't scale well. but it also just looks like a bit of an archaic system. I don't know how many other GPS games you guys have played that have any amount of competitive PvP when it comes to like any kind of ownership. They're not built the same way. These settlements that Omnis referenced, they'll be much more spaced out than the existing territories that we see in the game, and the rewards should be much greater than the existing one. So yeah, it's going to be very, very exciting.
Yeah, before the rewards were kind of like a couple gold, a couple orns, and some random materials, maybe some equipment. I don't think I ever heard anybody getting something like exciting from the equipment, like no old Northern crowns or things like that. What do you think are going to be the cool chase items to be getting from the rewards in the Conquerors Guild?
I wouldn't say necessarily chase items. So I don't think that there'll be specific items in this guild. It's more that this will become a more reliable stream of various incomes. So the way that the mechanics will work will be different to existing territory control. Omnis was pointing out that the existing one, it's just sort of like, okay, I can go and knock Vito out, and Wyvern Hand can knock me out, and Vito can knock Wyvern Hand out. This one, it's a little bit different. There's going to be, we reference them as leagues at one point in time, and the name has become crown ships or crowns. There'll be 5 per settlement. I don't know if you can see my hand. I've sort of like got my thing a bit cut off, but there'll be 5 crown ships per settlement that are like tier bracketed nearly. So there'll be a couple of tiers per crown ship, which means that lower tier players can finally participate in this. It was a big thing that was a pain point for new players, is that they couldn't do anything if they joined the game now and there was a level 250 Ascension 100. And what are you now, Omnis? 1,462 or something like that?
I paused at 100 and 100. I have 100 in Earth and Gilga and 100 in Deity.
This guy. But yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the
like,
show I gotta follow.
yeah, that's crazy. Just no, at this point, you start making him feel silly for it. Oh, you just have no life, man. That's just boring. Yeah.
Well, then I get into an argument on the Discord, and someone was like, well, let me show you how it's done. And I was like, holy shit. And then Big Yoshi was like, they have 175 ALs. I was like, that's, you think my 175 is probably triple the amount of work that I've put in, like, because of its scaling. Like,
insane.
I get probably the concept of how much work that would be, and I'm just like, that's kind of insane to me. But not like it took me that long to do 100 and 100. So
the gameplay hours would be crazy. But yeah, like new players that get essentially hard locked out of this. Now, for people who enjoy competition in their GPS games, a lot of players might have heard, or a lot of people will have heard of the game Ingress, which predates Pokemon Go, which is a GPS game that's exclusively PvP. That's the whole thing, right? It's just PvP. And imagine you come across from that to this and you get told, oh, it's okay, you can compete, but you have to first put in 1,500 hours and then you can start to compete. So it's a little bit, it's a little bit daunting for newer players. So this will allow them to participate in crowns of their tier or within their tier group, allows them to reasonably access that stuff, which is a really big deal. And these will be a little bit more, they're not necessarily omnipresent, but they're a lot more visible. The UI's changed a bit over the last few years, where territory control and exploration feels a little bit hidden beneath the Travelers Guild. This will appear on a layer. There'll be a settlements layer, so you can just see them on the map, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I really love that, because so often if I hop on a bus or something, I'm going to do a lot of dungeons. This is just out there. I don't have to click into another thing and take me out of what I'm doing. Like if it's like, oh, I've got a little spot where I'm not doing dungeons. I'm like, let me do a settlement here. Let me do an inn over here. And I know that the alpha is not like going to be the actual layout for them, but I have a settlement at my house. It's like practically right on top of me. And I was like, is this perfect or is it annoying? Because it's going to be like, I'm going to have to redo my buildings around it. is what's going to happen. Like, because I've got to organize. I can't have it just laying on the top of my refineries like a heathen.
The horror.
Yeah, that's cool and annoying. I get the town layout thing. That would be a little bit irritating,
The
but that's
Conquerors
kind of
would,
cool.
yeah, the Conquerors would get the smoke in their lungs. It'd be no good. No good.
Yeah,
But
we
yeah,
need to
it's gonna be sweet to just kind of like see how this all unfolds. And you had mentioned that you can still retain, which I know was a kind of a worry for some people, and I had even expressed it because I was kind of like, so what happens, right? And when it's like, okay, if you go full Conqueror's Guild, right? If you no longer, at least in the current what we're talking about, you're not in the normal territory anymore. And so I had this moment where I was kind of like, okay, I don't really care about this that much, but at the same time, I put a lot of effort to take over my entire little town, and I feel like I almost insulted that if someone showed up in Newcastle and everything was unclaimed, they'd be like, does nobody play around here? Like,
Yeah.
what's and so that's and then the legacy where you can come in, you no longer get the old rewards, but I could still kind of control my existing territories, but still start doing the new settlement feature. And so that totally relieved all that pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's all that legacy really is. We're conscious that people would be concerned about the hard work that they've put in, and it's not really a good enough answer to just say, well, the rewards will be better. You'll actually find that the old system won't be attractive once this comes in, because it's kind of a dismissal of the effort that's been made thus far. So that's why legacy exists. It is important to note that that won't be an option for a new player. So a new player is going to come in and they're going to be able to do the Conqueror's Guild, but not the old territory control system. So I would imagine over time there will be less and less players utilizing the legacy system, but I'm pretty confident that the reward loop of Conqueror's Guild will be much more rewarding and attractive for people.
And it's going to make people actually want to fight over it, right? Like, because you're getting solid stacks of rewards. Like, currently it was like you take over one spot and then you can claim a reward like once a day, and it was like 6 stacks of like 140 of a material. Like, that's great, right? And that's the sort of thing where, like, if that ends up being the amount per settlement or something close to that, you're going to see how, like, that incentivizes me to like go out on a walk on my lunch and be like, what are the settlements nearby that I can retake? Like, and so that's going to create more fighting, and Vito's going to hate me a little bit, but we're going to,
it's going down. Are these things going to rotate, or are they going to stay stationary for people to sort of fight over? Is there going to be is there going to be a Conquerors thing at my local bar?
So they'll seed and they'll stay.
Okay.
We are looking at seeding in general over time to see if there's ways to more intelligently seed some things that won't come out in 1.0 Conqueror's Guild, but perhaps in the future.
Okay.
There are some really important little tidbits with this, though, and I wonder. I look over my shoulder to see if Odie's glaring me down. Hopefully, it's not too much of
I'll give you the sign.
Yeah, but there is a plan here. So with the rewards, the way that it'll work is there's 5 crown ships, and the very top crown holder gets to determine what the settlement rewards are that you get to claim daily. And there's various options. There's kingdom resources like florins, there's Orn bundles, there's random material bundles. So you can choose what the reward is, and then you just go to your guild hall, your Conqueror's Guild hall each day, and claim it, and it'll all come to you. Now, the cool thing is that hotly contested settlements will have the potential to increase or scale those rewards. So if there is a settlement that's rotating a lot, think like a train station or something like that, where it's getting taken a lot, the rewards should increase as it's getting that frequent competition, which is a really cool, attractive feature to add into it as well. It means that there's actually incentive to keep rotating things. One of the old ways to play this territory control used to be that people were like, well, I own my town, you own your town, like, let's not do too much swap over of those. But if there's incentive to, the competition might start flying. And competition is fun in these games. It's like, as much as you might get salty about it, it's part of what really sticks in your memory about playing these sort of games.
Oh no,
Well,
for
I'm
sure.
just realizing.
I've had some
Go ahead,
friends
Vito.
complain about me taking their OT, and I've been like, come on, well, take it back. Molan Leve, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
I did have a moment when you and Wyvern Hand were swinging by to pick me up for the trip to Portland. And so you guys were going to drive into my neighborhood. I was like, how much territory am I going to have to, because I'm a walker. And so I'm like, how many of these spots am I going to have to re-walk to and retake? And they were nice enough. They didn't take anything. Like,
That's great.
highway they took, but anything past the highway they didn't fuck with. And that was pretty gentlemanly. I have respect for that.
It's our way of saying hello.
Yeah.
Won't happen in the new system.
I did at one point take Girk's OT because I bus pass it all kind of somewhat regularly. And I thought it was kind of like a joke, but he was on a break. And so I held his OT for like 3 months. And I'm like,
That's awesome.
But one of the cool things I'm just realizing while we're talking about it, because we can all claim rewards at different times of day. So I just realized like while there will be conflict and confrontation in the positive way of like, oh, we're going to fight over this stuff. At the same time, Girk, who's also local to me and fights over a lot of the same stuff, I can bus to work, retake any settlements on my way to work, and then immediately go and claim my rewards. And then he could claim in the evening when he gets to work and then claim his rewards right after claiming a bunch of stuff, right? Like there's nothing that...
I don't know. I don't know if there's like some sort of baked in cooldown on the actual reward claim per settlement. That's a really interesting question that's worth fleshing out with Bossman.
That's very interesting. Yeah, because especially with how that would interact with alts, right? Like, because you can pick Kingdom Florins as a reward. And like you were mentioning Kingdom Resources. So that may be really effective for someone with like an alt kingdom. Just sort of, cycle through their alts at their local settlement.
Yeah. Exploits raised by Omnis before
4D
release.
chess.
Wow.
I was surprised because I came into the alpha just a little bit late, and I was surprised that there was like a couple different things that I caught and something that got changed like within the first day of me doing alpha. And I thought I was probably coming into it where this stuff was already found and I was going to be pointless. But
nah, the alpha is getting tested by such a small pocket of people.
Yeah.
And closed alphas are very typically just to like get any real glaring bugs out of the way. So yeah, it's a lot of stuff won't have been picked up. I'm sure once it hits beta, there'll still be bugs and
for
stuff
sure.
to pick up. Yeah.
Well, Dangy, is there anything else that you want to talk about with the Conquerors Guild before we move on to the other segments? So fire away, my dude.
So people who are patrons will have seen our newsletter, and I think that Hurley has touched on this lightly in various hype posts, maybe even the video, is the concept of other souls. These two lads know what that term is. So I was talking earlier about how the Conquerors Guild will have 5 different crown ships, and they are tier bracketed. So what happens when I am a tier 10 and I'm level 225 or 230, and Omnis with his 100 plus ascension levels owns all the settlements in my area, and I give it my darndest shot, but I can't quite take that top crown ship, and we're in the same bracket, so that's really hard for me. There's going to be a concept or a feature in this guild called Other Souls, where you will be able to operate these characters of different tiers, where you can load them up with your equipment that you have upgraded in their tiers. So you can go back to all this old content and get gear for your Other Souls. And you can load them up with equipment. You can't put accessories on them, which is something that people will work out over time. But you can set up skills, all that sort of stuff, and you can actually go and take the lower tier crown ship if you're really struggling with that one. Oh, and
they
followers,
get equipped a follower too.
Yeah. If it is equipped on the Other Soul, you cannot use it on your main character while it's equipped on the Other Soul. So there'll be a little bit of management with that stuff. But yeah, you can then go and take the lower tier down crown ship, which means that you still have access to rewards. and even in a case where you can't take the top crown ship. So you will have access to other souls to potentially take all of the crowns within a singular settlement. There is diminished rewards, so owning all of them won't be the same as owning one 5 times, if that makes sense. So there is diminished rewards, but it does allow you access to a settlement if you can't take that crown that you're in, which is really cool. So lower tier players won't be able to see other souls that are higher than their tier, but the top tier guys will see another soul for all of the crown ships.
All right, yeah, a little more of a level playing field there.
Mm.
That definitely is gonna help, and it's an exciting opportunity for me to flex on those old event pets that are low tier. The bestiary is burgeoning. I mean, this is gonna be I imagine Dro's gonna be really excited with all of his already waffle forged
Oh,
items.
no, Dro.
Like he's already got the armory, I'm sure.
Yeah. And I guess the only other thing that's probably a cool one to tease is that there is decay with these, so your health will slowly go down. It's a feature that we're probably familiar with anyway. You can revisit a settlement to replenish the health. There's also guild shop items that you can purchase with the proofs that you earn to replenish health from afar, that sort of thing. But there is also these NPC conquerors, which are the ones that you'll face in the case that you come across a settlement that hasn't been taken by any players. There will be non-playable characters to combat with that will actually take settlements back off you if they go uncontested for a long time and you start to decay. So for people who are in rural areas, so like me, territory control where I live is just not engaged with because there's just not the players. So I can actually form little competitive battles with NPCs in my area who will take these things back from me, which is pretty cool.
That's rad. I didn't know that they would come through and take the territories from you. I got like blindingly excited when I saw that one of these Conquerors Guild NPCs was a goblin. This means that not only are they sentient, they're sapient and happy goblin
Well, and
sounds.
you can use all the different goblin sprites for your other souls. So you can just have all of your other souls be goblins.
Now we just need to make more than 2 goblin sprites available.
One day.
Coven, if you're listening.
Yeah, I think that's there's only one other tiny little feature that's just a fun one to probably share is that players will have the ability to leave messages at settlements.
Oh yeah,
the soapstones. Yeah. I haven't encountered any of those yet.
So you'll be able to leave messages, and they're at this stage temporary. So of course, like every feature, we go through betas, we test, we work out what works. But just another little fun competition thing. Just leave a little bit of shit talk after you take a settlement, and yeah, it'll be good fun. Or I can go over to Canada and say Dangy was here, which will be good fun.
There's a territory not too far from me here named the Best Blueberry Muffins. The coffee shop there has good muffins. I would never have known had not the place been named.
That's awesome. I love that.
So yeah, I'm really excited to see that the messages are not going away. Is there going to be any change to how like named territories work?
Well, yeah, in that they won't be a thing. So territory control currently, you can rename areas. That's not the case with settlements. You won't be able to rename a settlement, but you can leave messages at settlements.
Okay.
So yeah, that if you want to keep all of your funky named territories, pick legacy. When you build your guild hall and interact with it for the first time, you can pick legacy and you'll be able to keep all your old stuff.
Nice.
Or if you choose the Conquerors Guild, you get to play with those sick goblin NPCs.
Well, legacy, you'll get to do both is the cool thing. So you'll still get to like do the Conquerors Guild, but you can keep the old system too.
Best of both worlds.
All right. Well, before we move on to the next part, Dangy, I'm going to give you a choice. Because even though I said I'm just going to let this go for as long as it's going to go, we're already like an hour in and we've barely gotten to our segments.
We're in the news.
Yeah, we're just in the do we want to skip the like what have you been up to in Orna and go on to the main topic so we have tons of time for that, or are you excited to kind of talk about what you've been doing recently?
I will be led by you guys. I'm Captain Yapper. I will talk for days if you give me the platform to do so. So we can split it up. I should come back as well. We can do more
Absolutely. Yeah.
podcasts where I can come back and just
Here, here.
talk a bit more casual stuff with you guys. So happy enough to move on. That's fine.
Okay. Well, let's go into the main topic because we could always do what have we been up to afterwards if we wanted. We have the power to do it in whatever order that we want. So listeners, the funny thing is this was a main topic that I put in. So Vito and I have this little like spot in our Discord that's just us, but we just like it's just a spot for just sharing topic ideas for shows. And I was thinking back, this was what, 3-4 weeks ago or something, and I was just really astonished at just how much this game ends up benefiting you to be a part of Orna communities. And I was like, we have to talk about this at some point because I think as for me as a player, as I was growing, I felt like to a certain extent this was kind of a solo game to a certain extent, right? I coming from other MMOs where there was a lot more stuff. I was like expecting when I was getting to raids that I was going to need other people, and then you learn that it's just a very different kind of MMO RPG sort of experience. But then I've kind of come back around as I've been trying to really grow in what I would consider the end game. I was like, man, the community part's almost a necessity. Um, so Vito, why don't we can talk about dungeons is probably the easiest place to start. How does being a part of Orna communities benefit you as far as dungeons go?
Man, so for me, I do a lot of my Orna playing on the bus. So sharing way vessels and dungeons with my friends and kind of using my opportunity to sort of scout out those popular themes of the week. I really enjoy that. I've had some fun opportunities to just sort of sit down and spend the evening just grinding out some dungeons with some friends. Uh Man, do you remember when we were sitting down at a restaurant, you, me, and Spiral, and we were farming anguish tokens, trying to work our way up to anguish 50?
Very badly at it. We were not. I don't feel like we were doing a very good job. Like
No, but we were sure doing it.
yeah, I think we were like English 30 or something, 30, 35. And man, I went into the first one with like an Orn build. It was, it was, oh, I got us killed really fast. I was like, okay, yeah, that's not going to work. Um,
I was available for Regio taking a revive pet. It was fine. It was fine. Don't worry about it.
we made it work. Dangy, you kind of like you could share like a dungeon spot with the community sometimes. Is that just something you found and decided to like share on the Discord, or did Odie make it for you?
So we have around my area a lot of really dense dungeon spots. I've mentioned that I've played for 5 years and I've got friends that we go on vehicle rides together.
Yeah.
What we would find over time, because we played prior to view distance being a thing as well, right? So a lot of savvy people will understand the mechanics of building spawns in Orna. The way it basically works is as you move from one screen to another, if there's nothing there, a building will spawn. It will spawn every single time. That's just how it works. And those will sometimes be a dungeon. So when we started playing, we had like a dungeon here or there, and every single one of our dungeon spots over time. So we had a car full of 5 people on their phones playing at once. All of those spots are now 4, 5, 6 dungeons. It's fantastic because we'd just go and we'd park there, and everyone's characters would sort of drift in their different spots, and you'd get a bunch of buildings. Our area, if you have all of the layers on, just looks disgusting because there's just buildings covering the entire town. But we have a lot of really dense dungeon spots. And yeah, I share a couple with the community here or there when I can. I feel a little bit bad sometimes because I'll put it up and then I don't have the opportunity to get out to reset those way vessels. When I was doing it regularly, I had committed basically to driving an hour every single day to the towns nearby where they were to set them up, and it's not necessarily feasible all the time. But what was really good with that is a bunch of people in the community picked up that slack, and there's lots of dungeon sharing going on. So yeah, I think like the community play stuff. What's really interesting to me about Orna and Hero of Aetheric is that almost every RPG that you play or MMO that you play, there's not really a shortage of active video content to help guide you through your game. But our games, and maybe it's because they are mobile or because of the way that the game operates, is most of that stuff actually happens in our spaces like Discord, or happens in Telegrams or WhatsApp chats or Facebook or Reddit. It's not necessarily that there's videos that everyone can boot up. There used to be with Shabash, you'd do sometimes, but the Discord stuff it's real. Once people discover it, it's really interesting to see how many people say, like, why isn't this like something that is made more obvious to people? Come and join the Discord, because you'll get access to dungeons, you'll get access to raids. There's Orna Legends do
I
this.
said that.
Yeah,
I definitely said that.
there you go.
Well, I mean,
right.
in their defense, like the icon for their Discord is right in the main like menu there. You click your character at the bottom, it shows up.
The
think-
next update has it at the top of the chat as well. So every chat window will have a Discord link.
I think part of it is for like, because obviously the Discord link was always there from the moment that I started. But I think there's aspects, you know how you can put a Post-it note on your monitor, right? And it'll help you the next day, right? 2 days later, it's just part of your monitor. You don't even notice its existence anymore. And I think by the time I needed the Discord's help, the Discord button was just part of the screen at that point, right?
Yeah.
Like it was just part of the things. And so I maybe like, this is like, I don't know if when Odie will listen, but like there's a part of me that's just like, maybe at the point where you like hit level 100, that then there's a pop-up just once that's just like, hey, by the way, the Discord community for this game is really great. You should consider joining the Discord. Just to kind of like shake, like, because I think that would have been really beneficial for me, like on my journey. Because right as I was starting to ask, like, get into weird questions, you know, I'm like starting to encounter Fomorian bosses and shit. Man, I wish that like Odie just kind of came out and slapped me there for a second. Was like, hey, buddy, maybe you should Discord. Have you thought of, like, you have a Discord account, you subscribe to Discord, maybe you should also Orna Discord.
Yeah, it's definitely like a sentiment that people who are familiar with these sort of systems will all reiterate. Like it's such a clear, obvious advantage nearly to playing the game is like getting part of these things. But there are, on the flip side, players who will see that they have to join Discord to get the most out of the game and check out. So it's like a bit of a balancing act of what's going to be the best way.
You drop it on them too soon, right? And it may push certain people away.
Exactly.
But I figure for people who are listening to this show, I don't know how many like level 33 players that we have at the moment. If you're listening and you're a 33 player, I would love for you to message me on Discord. I think you're awesome.
You're 3 for life.
But for the most part, I feel like we probably have people who are fairly into it. And I just want to stress, and so like still on the dungeon part of this, there's just been so many times like in our Patreon Discord, and I'll just say for the moment, like, I'm not trying to overly push the Patreon, but we try to keep that community contained in something that Vito and I can moderate and keep a really good vibe to it. And it's worked out really well. And I love every time, like, oh, I have a shrine going and I need like 7 more dungeons. I'll just like hop in, like, guys, who's got a way vessel that you could hit me with? I just need like 7 normal dungeons. Or, you know, the Beastfeld event. There was a point where I had like 3 beast dens at a way vessel, but then the next week I didn't. And then like Big Yoshi had one, or Yoshimitsu had one, or Sirith had one. And it was just this collective effort that I would not have nearly as many Linkus bristles if it wasn't for the fact that I'm trying to help other people and they're trying to help me. And that's just, I just can't stress how helpful it is. And so whether that's your kingdom group sharing, or you're finding Dangy's post on the main Discord, or you're in our Patreon group, or even the Pacific Northwest, which is an open one, is very active on letting people borrow way vessels and stuff. So
Yeah, it's definitely, I guess, it's not clear to people who aren't part of it, but the benefits they're they're so compounding, right? Like you're talking about doing dungeons. Do a dungeon solo. Sure, you can do horde dungeon if you want to, cost you a bunch of keys. But if you do it even with one other person, you get an additional access per dungeon for free. Like somebody else hosts and you run through the whole thing again. So you're doubling up all of the materials you access, you're doubling up all of the drops that you can access, you're doubling up the end of dungeon rewards. And what often happens if you play with 3 or 4 people is by the time you get through everyone's dungeons, your cooldowns are done. So you get to run them again. So if you've got like really dense dungeon spots, some of the funnest thing I talked about earlier, doing it in a vehicle, but you can actually achieve that in a Discord phone call. You can just jump on a call with some kingdom mates and play nearly endlessly and get even more than you ever would solo. So yeah, it's definitely, I guess, underappreciated if you don't know that you can interact with the game that way.
absolutely. Um, Vito, you run endless more than I do, obviously, and so there's obviously like the exp sharing side of this too.
Right.
And I definitely, coming from other games, I didn't really like, the exp part of this was kind of mind boggling to me. Do you want to kind of give the listeners a rundown of how sharing exp can be really beneficial?
Yeah, well, I mean, so I'm I'm 250, so obviously any XP that I earn just sort of goes in the bucket, right? It doesn't really serve me any purpose. At the same time, like being in a group with somebody does give you a stat bonus. There's a small stat bonus associated to that. So if you're doing endless where every little stat bonus does count, sometimes it's nice to just sort of send a message out to someone in the community that's 225, just in range to get the experience share with you. And just when you do your grind, there's a lot of bonus experience just on your band of gods. And it really adds up. It's made a lot of people's day. Just me doing my endless can be about as profitable as an evening of raiding for them.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
definitely hopped into a kingdom group. Like I'm about to do an hour of raids or an hour of dungeons on my way to work, and just like hopped in the kingdom group, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Omnis, thanks for the level." Yeah,
That's awesome.
um, that's sweet. Daggy, do you have any experience sharing stories?
So the way experience share used to work is that there was no level range cap. So early days, we had an issue with experience share because people would they'd out tier their gear by quite a lot. And this is back in the days where you weren't getting daily rewards. Like right now, if you play a new character, I'm playing a new character at the moment. And if you're struggling with gear, you can legitimately just wait 8 days and you'll get 3 ornates at the end of 8 days and you're good to go again. Uh, Back then, if you got tiered up from level 25 to level 200 or 175 or whatever, that character felt done. Like there was nothing you could really do. You couldn't defeat a single enemy. It was just ridiculous. And you couldn't do party play. So you couldn't play as a party to get them gear. So they were just kind of hard stuck. Um, back back in days when party play got introduced and everything, I think I used to have a little bit of an issue with party share XP. I was like, you're taking the fun out of the game for yourself. You've got to progress. You've got to go through trials and tribulations. It's meant to be hard. It's meant to be frustrating. And then you get through it and it's fantastic. Do it yourself. But now the way that the game is, I think like there's a lot of benefit both from a player based standpoint, but a studio standpoint as well, to have as many people as possible at the end of the game, as many people as possible in that last tier, because then you're producing content for a more focused group rather than splitting it out. And that's one of the big problems, is that it's a little bit of a funnel problem. You got to try and get people to the end of the game. So I'm actually okay with it now. But yeah, I mean, Vito was calling out there's ranges. You have to be within 25 levels of each other to even get XP from each other. But there are bonuses too, like the 10% stat bonus if your party member is with you, so they're like near you. It won't happen over range, but if they're near you, then you'll get 10% bonus. That stuff helps as well. It's something that we always do when we go for drives and do dungeons. We've got to make sure to party up so that we can clear this stuff easier.
One thing that I noticed this very early on when I started playing, but I thought it was really interesting as I was like learning about raids and the concept of helping other people. And I really thought it was cool that between the materials and then raids dropping stuff like keys and potions, I conceptually love that there was already this built-in aspect to the game that if I want to go help someone else, I'm actually motivated to do it. Right, I get stuff out of helping people with lower raids. It's actually really impactful for me. Like, oh, you have a bunch of, even if it, could be, Crimson Pinions, right?
Yeah.
Off of the Fey
Cockatrice.
Yeah. Or, like I said, just helping kingdom mates out, and you still get like some mats, you get some potions, you get, there's this built-in ability to just assist people, and then it's actually like rewarding you for assisting people, which I think is fantastic. But speaking of raids, the concept of like raid trading was something that didn't occur to me until I kind of saw people doing it. And just as an example, we had a new patron, the Rock Bobster, which is amazing because someone in the Discord found him a picture of a 3D print where it was a lobster with Dwayne The Rock Johnson's head on it.
Awesome.
And so he changed his profile picture to this picture of the Rock Lobster, and his name
That's
is
awesome.
yeah.
I'm so curious
Rock
who
Bobster.
thought up like a freaking lobster centaur. Like what? Who?
They watched The Mummy 2 and were like, what if he was a lobster instead of a scorpion?
There's the song, The Rock Lobster. It's a song, right? But
Yeah.
Is it?
A rock.
But I mean, there are no lobster centaurs in the song, right?
True.
But anyway, so he was just looking for someone to split. God, which raid? Oh, it was just Fey Jorms, and so I farmed up some more of them, and we just hopped on Discord and like chatted for an hour, and it was just like I summoned 10, you summoned 10, and like for him to go through those that fast was actually gonna be a little like kind of slow, and we were just like, yeah, cool, you buff up, keep yourself alive. I'll Ultima Strikes these Jorms. We'll go through them, and we're just like chatting about the game, chatting about random bullshit, nerd stuff. And we did that a couple different days, I think, in a row. And it was super fun. And for something like Fey Jorm that doesn't have that many legendaries, for the most part, we were both getting every drop the whole time. Like, that is definitely more beneficial than doing raids 100%. And
more raids, more better. Yeah.
Yep.
You can almost always find people who are willing to go 50-50 with you. And if you do it together, you're guaranteed to have exactly 50-50.
Yeah.
Dangy, do you do have you done any like raid trade combinations?
Yeah, for sure. So then a lot of people know the name Fuximus. Fuximus and I always had these really long-standing agreements on various raids. He always played Beowulf, and there's weapons and armor from the Fey Chimera that he was really interested in. And I wasn't particularly interested in. I didn't need follower stats, but I was really interested in Ashen Phoenix because Ashen Phoenix has really cool gear for Gilgamesh, which is what I mained. So we always did these trades where it's like, okay, we'll either trade those straight up, or if we want to do them together, we can just like split all these. And that was true for a lot of like super raids as well. I think Fox and I did all of our Fey Yormies together. Poor guy, we did hundreds of them, and I don't think he got a chest, a Serta chest for the first run. Hopefully he's got one by now. But that stuff's really fun. And it's true not just for the world raid splitting that you do, but it's really true for kingdoms as well. Like there's this mindset that people get into sometimes early, where where it's like, oh, I'm really annoyed that somebody else came and finished off this kingdom raid because I was most of the way through it and I was going to come back and finish it. And the truth is, it's always better to cycle as many as you possibly can. It's not actually better to do one every 1.5 hours. It's way better to do 10 in an hour than it is to do one entirely by yourself. It will
Assuming your kingdom
always
can
be
afford
true.
it.
Yeah, well, assuming that the kingdom can afford it, of course. But the more you can cycle with more people, it's just better. And it feels nice too. Like rather than getting so uptight about like this is my property and no one else can take part in this, it actually feels way nicer sharing and having people want to actively share with you. And it's such a good experience. People are what make a game the best, I think.
Definitely had some kingdom experiences where we're like, even when we're farming, we're doing like 100%, accidentally getting yourself killed, especially like a counterattack or a reflect, and then you message someone else in your kingdom and you're like, hey dude, I accidentally
Finish
got
this.
myself killed, will you just go in and do that 100,000 damage so that I can go back and farm more of these?
Yeah.
That certainly happens. Vito, you do all sorts of you've done all sorts of sharing for these.
Yeah, we do have a thing we call the secret sandbar. I joke that it's a very poorly kept secret. But it's kind of this thing we kind of find a location that doesn't have a lot of other local players. And then we have someone host who will just sort of work to keep a way vessel open there and invite people over. The reason we call it a sandbar is because it's sort of focused on the Sands of Aru spell.
Oh, okay.
High penetration, low damage. The idea is you get a whole bunch of friends in to do just nominal damage. Think like 100 damage or less, ideally, to just a bunch of raids, and then you go ahead and you kill them yourself. So you're not losing anything, but everyone else gets a very, very small
Proof of
chance.
felling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, there you go. I need to go
One of the
reevaluate
least
all my math.
valuable proofs in the game.
We'll have to look at that stuff over time. Fix up the
Yeah.
economies of various guilds. That's cool though, man.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I've been kind of surprised at the number of not only ornates that have come out of it, but like cool ornates.
Oh, sick.
So since this kind of started, I started hearing more about this, and I heard that Shabash may have been one of the people who kind of led this initial concept in the community a bit. At least is kind of what I've heard. The idea of like, oh, summoning raids and then letting people swing in and just like do a quick punch, kind of share resources, and just do a little love tap. But now, so say I'm doing for Fey Jorm, right? And so I summon 500 raids, which I did, and then clear them out. As I got down to just Ashen Phoenixes and just Arisen Morgans, then I'll pop over into like the Patreon Discord and just like, all right, wave vessels open. Anyone who wants to sand, and there's just a picture of Arisen Morgans and Ashen Phoenixes. Feel free to sand. And then people will come through, and it's always really cool when you see someone who just like sanded and they're like, and I got an ornate Fey Arisen Crow song.
That's sick.
Ornate Fey. It is Fey Arisen Crow song. I was second guessing myself for a second. But yeah, and so that just all of the concepts of being able to kind of cross raids with each other is huge, and I'm actually kind of surprised that I don't see more of this. Or am I just not paying close enough attention to the Discord, Stangy?
No, it is. It's a really interesting thing, right? Is that this is one of the things that kind of gets kept to kingdoms a lot. So it happens all over the place, but people kind of have their people. So there's a couple of guys that I can rely on for certain things, and it's just easier. So that's why we always encourage people to join a kingdom. Like people will be a bit hesitant to join a kingdom, but just join it. You don't have to stay with it if you don't like it. You can change kingdoms, but there's a lot of benefit to it. And a lot of this stuff happens on Kingdom Discords. You can go through and look at the various factions and join a bunch of Kingdom Discords, and you'll see they've all got different sharing stuff. Shabash was for sure, and he'll be in the Ornaverse Hall of Fame for community contributions forever, I think. But he set up Orna Legends after It must have been after the introduction of Party Play. So it was at 3.0, or maybe it was before it, and he added a bunch of channels once Party Play came in. But yeah, they've always had a whole heap of, they've got roles on their Discord that you can opt into. Say that I'm looking for Faye Cockatrice raids, or I'm looking for Morrigan raids, and you can click the emojis and opt into them. Then people will say, I have a heap of Arisen Morrigan if anybody wants them. And you get tagged, and then you can go and join in. So there's a lot of stuff out there for sure that people do share publicly. It just happens mainly in kingdoms, I would say. One tip that I do have for a bunch of people, though, if they're looking to get into this sort of thing, even if you're a low tier player, doesn't matter if you're starting out and you're like tier 4, tier 5, whatever it is, and all the way up to tier 10, but you still feel like you're not very effective at dual raiding yet, and you don't want to bother people. There's a dragon event right now. Go on Codex Lotan, get the Lotan pet from the bestiary. Just find somebody who's got it in their bestiary. People share that stuff all the time. And just say, does anybody want to duo some raids with me? I can put Lotan and Assassin on, and you're golden because people will love you. If you want to go and raid with Omnis, he'll be like, okay, cool, I'll just put Earthen on, and you'll trigger that Earthen Blight, and then we'll be Gucci. We'll get this raid done in about 4 turns. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm like, okay, well then I'm switching to Berserk, and
exactly.
you can drop the Blight, and yeah, we'll be one shot in raids 2 turns in. That's
exactly.
Playing support in Orna is just an absolute gas. If you haven't had an opportunity to do it, take the chance. Take the chance.
Yeah.
So Vito, I do want to talk about Amity sharing a bit, which I know is kind of complicated, and we have a whole episode on it. But I want to stress how important I think this is to the end game. But can you just kind of give a quick rundown of like how does Amity sharing work?
Yeah, so basically when you do an Amity, if you're in a party, that party has a seed, right? And so every day for that week at that hour, if you do the same Amity and you get the same answer, you'll receive the same reward. So Amity sharing is sort of a group of people that look for the valuable affixes and then sort of hunt down what the ornate rewards are and try to share them as broadly as possible.
Yeah, good call out there. And yeah, it's sometimes like it's just, oh, we found a 40% crit. So now some people will see if they can figure out what the legendary is for it. And as soon as some cool combination shows up, like I have 2 different amities that are 40% crit, 30% dragon damage with relatively reasonable penalties.
And I'm not jealous at all.
What in the world?
Cirith found them in the Orna Legends, I believe. And but he commented like, I found these guys, and I couldn't get into that hour, but I got myself like first in the queue for going in and finding it the next day. I got 2 and maybe like 10 hunts or something or less.
That's nice.
But my point to this is that there are some extremely powerful combinations. When you think about, okay, if I'm using 40% crit and 40% crit on Ultima Strikes, and now I have access to plus 30% and plus 30% if I'm Oracle, there is no other thing in the game that I could be doing that would have that kind of increase to my character.
Yeah.
Besides going to an Amity hunt. And this is essentially a community-driven way to enhance your character. And so I kind of want to throw it over to Dangy, because you were playing like as this stuff was being discovered. Were you and Shabash already doing a podcast when this was found, or was this a little bit before Arisen?
No, so this I think was actually even after Shab stopped podcasting a little bit, because he did do a video on Amity hunts. I think I was part of the team already when we had Diluted Mnemonics come out. So I was probably already part of the studio by then. But yeah, I mean, I've participated in a bunch of it, both in person, but also on Legends. They do a great job with the Amity hunt sharing. In person, it's amazing. If you guys do a meetup, do some Amity hunts together, some memory hunts sometime, because you only need 4 of you. And then you can run through a thing and all choose a different option and go, okay, we know what that entire node has now. And it takes only 1 for each of you rather than 4 whole Diluted Mnemonics to do that. So I personally get into a rhythm, and I still do this because I like memory hunts. I've got an electric scooter, and I like to just like zoom around and do my memory hunts on the electric scooter. Um, I'll start on a Monday. To what Vito was saying, it's like every week this will reset, and there'll be a seed per hour for the party. So on a Monday, I'll just check every hour to see if there's like decently achievable amities on memory hunts to complete and find out what the ones are, and then do that every hour until I find one that's good. And say I find one that's 20% earth damage, I'm like, cool, I'm doing that this week until we get whatever the ornate is so we can see what it is. Because it's really important to hunt for not just a common one of it or a superior one of it, but the legendary and the ornate. They give you extra bonuses, obviously extra malices as well. But the really interesting thing is it changes the malices. So you might have a really bad malice on a superior, but if you get to the legendary, it's a different malice. So it's going to be maybe even better. But you can get like the ones that you're saying there, Vito. That's insane. 30% dragon and 40% crit. That's ridiculous.
So
That is
here's the
ridiculous.
malices are actually a bonus for me too.
What?
So it's got the one, it lowers the amount of ward you get from ward spells. For Gilgamesh Ursa, that's amazing because
Yeah.
that means I can now cast Ward of Ortonite for ward turns and not have it increase my ward absorption.
Ah, that's that would have a
Right, because you
niche
just
case
want your
because you want
mana
to use your
recovery.
health as well. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the extra mana cost is kind of nice for the blue lining classes. What's
Yeah.
what's the nuttiest amity? We're getting kind of off topic here, but what's the nuttiest amity that you've got, Dangy?
Mine are from the community. I think I only found one really decent. I got an ornate the week they came out, and people were saying like this is obviously just the studio giving you one that
Oh
you
yeah,
can
for
share
sure.
around. That was like it increases water damage by 20%, increases lightning resistance by 80%, and I'll recover 25% additional HP and mana when using potions. So I got that. It was like my third Amity hunt or something. I think it was ridiculous. So I got it on the 2nd of June, 2022.
That's not bad.
Ages ago. But the ones that I use were from the community. They are about, here it is here. I'm just like going through them to read them. Positive status effects will last 50% longer and you'll recover 4% ward every turn. That's like a huge one.
Some nice
then
recovery.
You can,
if you'll pardon
once
the
you
pun.
get Deific channel up, then you're Gucci.
Yeah.
And then another one that I use a lot is you'll recover 5% ward every turn and increase damage by earthen damage by 20%. So I got two of those. So 40% extra earth damage and 10% ward recovery every turn.
I have I got in on that one as well. So I have two of those. Even though I'm not Earth Kingdom, it makes it so I use Earth attacks instead of Frost most of the time. Just too
punchy.
good. Great Gilga grab. So this is kind of the main point that I wanted to get to is just like if you're listening and you haven't become a part of these things, like I was really intimidated by amity hunts and stuff initial and a lot of the group content and not knowing what to do. And this is just, it's extremely rewarding to be a part of these. And now I feel like one of the most important things I can do is be like help with hunts and like then hop in and like get some legendaries and excited for what weird combinations. Like there was a weird ornate that I got where before I had the 40% crit, 30% dragon, I was helping to find one and it started off like 30% arcane. Then it became 20% earth. And so at the time it's better than 40% crit and by a considerable margin when you have two of them. And so I was like, I am going to find this ornate because I was the person who found the legendary. So I was already searching. And then it was like 5% health recovery. And I was like, this is God tier. But then it's got like some bad malices. But I still use it because the 5% health recovery and 30% arcane ends up being something I use in horde builds. Where I just want a little damage boost, and arcane is a pretty decent one, especially for like Valleys of the Gods and for doing battlegrounds and stuff too. And then just giving that little health recovery helps me keep up with berserk damage and stuff, just so just makes it a little bit smoother. So there's just cool stuff that you can come across. And I certainly never hate when a thing gives me earth damage, because fuck nidhogs.
Yeah, no, you're dead right. I mean, amity hunts, I think like this is one of the things that people probably should be pointed to a lot more aggressively in the game. And it doesn't necessarily have to be isolated to doing it as a community exercise either, although it's massively beneficial to do some of this stuff with a community, because you can just work out the good ones and just get the good ones rather than having to go through the arduous process of trying to find the good ones. You should be doing memory hunts. You should be, when you're looking at the guilds, whatever guild it is that you engage in, pretty good chance that they sell diluted mnemonics and they sell summoning scrolls. Those are the things that you should be buying. You should buy diluted mnemonics outside of the actual active effects that come from the amities themselves. And on my new character, I got a 20% earth one early days, and suddenly I'm just out tiering my potential because I can just do way more damage. It's fantastic. But it also gives you bulk orns, bulk gold, bulk experience. So nowadays, if somebody says, oh, I'm hard locked because I can't buy my next class, the answer is go and do a few memory hunts, and you can. Like it's as simple as that. And you can even get amities that bolster the rewards that you get from memory hunts. And there's events that happen that bolster the rewards from memory hunts, and there's followers that bolster the rewards from memory hunts. There's lots of ways to really capitalize on that. And like I said, you can buy summoning scrolls too. So I agree, community, you definitely should go and seek out some form of community to try and capitalize on this stuff as much as you can. But you should do memory hunts in general. They're so impactful to your ability to get through this game.
Always do them in a group, so that it is a party, so that you can share it. If you stumble onto something super cool, even if you're like, there's a couple of times where I just like, I think I was in a party with my alt and just then found a cool amity that I was messing around with on my lunch, and then shared it with the Pacific Northwest community. I didn't even fully understand what I was doing back then. I didn't understand that like you could search and like could potentially get an ornate. Like there was just things that I didn't even fully understand. But yeah, just be in a group, then you have the ability to share it. But yeah, so Dangy, do you have any closing thoughts on this main topic? I mean, I think you kind of just did your closing thoughts probably, but I feel like you probably always have something else to say. So if final message for the listeners, be a part of a community. Dangy says so.
Look, we try where we can to make it clear that jumping into our communities is a good idea without trying to cross the line of being overbearing and pushing people who might not want to do that stuff. But we're doing it not because we get something out of you coming to our communities. In fact, it's more management for us, but it's a really good thing to do. The more people that you interact with on this, you'll just get easier answers to things. You'll get access to more content.
Become a co-host on a podcast.
Yeah, you can join
Don't threaten
podcast.
me.
You can make content with people. We do all sorts of cool things in the Discord too. Like we'll run competitions. We have some people who make some really awesome material for the game. They make guides for every event that comes out. They made a guide for the entire quest line. There's discussion threads where you can go through and posit your cool suggestion ideas and talk them out with people. It's just, I don't know that there's necessarily a downside to joining it. If it is that you don't like talking a lot, you can just look even. You can read. This is where we put all of our known issues. This is where we make our announcements to the community. So jump into the Discord. Even just jump into the Patreon that these guys have. It's your guys' space is about the most wholesome space that exists. I got to say, it's impressive what you guys have got going on there. But yeah,
I do love the Northern Forge Patreon as well. I'm in that too, and that was actually one of the first places for me where I felt okay just chatting about the game. Yeah. That was really, because I think I hopped into the big Discords and it was kind of a lot.
It can be whelming, yeah.
But I might have actually been in the Patreon Discord first, because after you sub, then you automatically, because I already had my Patreon combined with Discord, so that might have actually been the first one that I was in, and then I found the others through it. But that one definitely kind of like helped ease me into things. So that was, but this all Vito, this gave me an idea. You know how much Girk loves fishing? Can you imagine we grab a cooler of beer, we go over to like the lake over here or something, and then we do Orna fishing by the lake together?
That'd be
You
sick.
guys fish. I'll do memory hunts.
Hey, do you want to know a little hack with memory hunts? And I'm very
Yes.
Sure.
excited for this. I'm going
Ooh.
to Bali, which is part of Indonesia. It's a lot of different
Okay.
islands off the north coast of Australia. I'm doing that tomorrow. So I think we leave
Ooh,
in something like
wow.
20 hours. I'm going there for a little vacation. If you happen to find a location that is fairly surrounded by water, memory nodes can't spawn on water. So they all spawn
Hmm.
on top of you, basically. So when you're
Okay.
in an environment that's like basically all covered by water, every memory hunt becomes
Vito,
capturable.
Ocean Shores.
Okay. So
We go hit the peninsula.
yeah, or we need to just start doing this on a ferry.
Wow, I don't know how that'd
Yeah.
work. That'd be interesting because then you are on water. So I don't know what happens there. But if you're like, what do they call it? Is it not landlocked? The opposite. Like you just got ocean around you and you're on a
Yeah.
little patch of land. They'll just all spawn on top of you. Last time I was in Bali, I worked this out and I went through like 150 diluted mnemonics in a day. My phone was like red hot because I just sit there, everything was couchable. I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. I get like
Dude,
200
Vito, we
million
should
odds.
totally do this. I bet if we went over to Ocean Shores, or I know there's a spot in like Gig Harbor or something that might be even better, but I think Ocean Shores would be closer. But we could go hit the peninsula, chill out on the edge of the peninsula, and I bet
Yeah, we
we
got
could
to
get it
start
rare.
trolling the old Google Maps for.
We've got enough water around here. There has got to
Yeah.
be a good spot for this.
The good
So
old straight of
cool.
Fuca,
You know,
yeah.
the only problem with it is because when I did this, I did it last year in Bali. It was around the same time last year, and I got this really good amity. And then I shared it with friends saying, "Oh, it's completely
Oh,
couchable. Like it's fine, it's couchable." And then they went to do it, and they're like, "This is not couchable at all. Like
I
I have to."
forgot about the. Oh, yeah, the sharing part would not work.
It
Yeah.
didn't work at all. So they were like, "This
Was
is
it
not
even the same
couchable at
Amity?
all." It's
Was it
same
even
amity, but like it was
Yeah.
like even the locations were kind of off because I think if it's going
Yeah.
to spawn like out there somewhere, it like pulls in
It has
to
to
the
pick somewhere
closest land.
else, yeah. Oh
Yeah,
man.
so that was the only thing. I think I found
Hard
one
to
that
share.
was back when the wall was a big deal. Like everyone wanted the wall amity, so I got
Mm-hmm.
one that was the wall, and it was like the reduced damage, but also had a really good. It was like 5% extra damage at full health or something. Whatever it was fantastic for like Blades of Finesse or something. But yeah, then they're like, "This isn't couchable." Like, oh, it is to me.
The troll.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. Well, let's go ahead and hop over to our Codex challenge. So,
I'm
Dangy,
excited.
you get to challenge us.
Here it
Do you
is.
want to do one for both of us? Do you want to do a separate one? Like, what do you want to do? We'll give you a little control.
I have two, and you can
Okay.
both check it. Now
Okay.
I have to do the obvious qualifier that almost the majority of my content was consumed pre-Codex. So I've been listening to your episodes, and I'm like, man, this sucks. I get way more of those. But the first one is Nothran Warlock.
Okay.
Nothran Warlock.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I feel so. There was a point where I probably would have said that I was lower, but then I hit this spot where I was getting low on now all of a sudden
Baldur.
I'm forgetting. I was getting low on regular Balder, and I was like, oh, man. So I just like
Right.
hit those pretty hard. So I'm gonna say I have more than Dengi.
More. Okay.
Wow. I'm gonna say that I also do, because that's one that shows up in Endless pretty frequently, and I've also been really, really punching the hell out of monuments lately for the medals.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think You know, Dengi, you're one of the few folks that's got an older Orna birthday than me, so this gives me some real pause. But yeah, I think I've got you, if only slightly.
Okay, so it was Nothran Warlock, the tier
Yes.
8.
Not elite.
Okay,
So
so
tier 8.
yeah, the tier 8. So Vito, we're both thinking that we have more. We've kind of started exploring the like, do we think that we're doubling? Do you think that you're doubling, Dangy?
No, I don't think I'm that. I don't think I'm that far ahead of him.
Okay.
I think we're probably pretty close.
I'm gonna go Wild Omnis, and I'm gonna say that I'm gonna double Dangy.
Whoa.
Wow.
You have got a lot of ascension levels. You've played a lot.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, it's not like Battlegrounds are my favorite content or anything. So, all right, Vito, do you want to go first?
I'm ready. I've got for Northern Warlock. I've got 2091.
2091. Do you think you beat me?
Do I think I've beat you? I don't think I've beat you. No.
Do you think that you'll have half of mine?
I think I'll have half of yours.
Okay. All right, mine 6,617.
I do not have half of yours. It's
You're
like
a
a third.
psychopath. What is wrong
No.
with you?
After that much murder,
All right,
it's
Dangy has
sociopath.
called me a psychopath. I've won Orna.
New title incoming.
You
All right,
both,
Dangy, what is your number?
you both beat me, but Vito, this is a really nice moment for us right now, okay? Because I'm
Yeah?
at 2047. We are within 50 of each other. That's pretty
Wow.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah.
There's some real. We can really bond over this Northern murder.
Yeah. I originally looked at Frost Trolls, but because they're such a low tier and Codex came out well after I was tier 11, I was like,
but it's in towers,
that
though.
wasn't-
I was half
Yeah.
expecting you to pick that coming into this. I was expecting you to pick the Frost Trolls just as the shout. But
I've only got 600 of them, so I was like, all of mine would have been done. The other one that I put in there was actually a raid because I'm curious.
Okay.
Because I used to smash this raid a lot, as much as I could. This predates like good Gilga gear, and I mentioned it earlier in the podcast. Is Ashen Phoenix?
Ooh. I think there's kind of been like almost a resurgence of Ashen Phoenix. I think a lot of people really slept on Ashen Phoenix gear. Do you want to know my number? I'm a little surprised.
So let's oh, so you've already looked at your number?
I did
Ashen
just look at
Phoenix?
my number.
Yeah, I accidentally did it too. But let's still I want to see let's still compare ours to Dangy's. So I'm actually going to say that I'm going to be lower. And I think this is because of the nature, even though I've gone out of my way to find Ashen Phoenixes, I think the nature of the summoning scroll and not being able to control how many you get and the event stuff, I'm going to say that I'm actually lower. What do you think, Vito?
See, I think that I'm lower than you, but I think I'm maybe
you
lower
think-
than both of you. I think I'm lower than you, but I think I may
Okay.
also be lower than Dangy.
Okay.
I think based on the discovery of how much of a psychopath Omnis is, that I'm probably still lower.
Okay.
Look,
Bloody
back in my
Omnis.
day, this was a big number, okay?
Yeah. All right, well, let's have Dangy go first on this one.
Yeah.
All right. So my Slayer on this is 385.
385.
Okay.
Hmm.
Vito, what is yours?
So far I was right with my anticipation of being lower than both y'all. I'm 292, almost a full
Ooh.
100 less than Dangy.
All right. So, as much as you guys think of me
All right,
as an
Murder
Orna
Man.
psychopath,
Uh-huh.
357.
Whoa.
I was
So you
right.
are on top.
Dangy was on top.
Oh.
Called it.
Whoa.
Yes.
Way to go.
There you go. So if anyone's curious as to whether the studio actually plays their game, we do. I have 195 days and 3 hours in this game. I
Wow.
played it a bit. That's on one character.
Right, and the alts.
Yeah.
Gosh, I
Man,
don't
well,
even...
Dangy, this has just been a blast.
It
Yeah,
really
what a
has.
fun
I think you
episode.
picked a couple of good ones. We were all fairly close on the Ashen Phoenix. You know, I was less than 50 below you. Vito was less than 100 below you. You know, we're relatively close. So
Yeah.
I still just think it's cool that the Codex Challenge kind of just became a thing.
It's awesome, man. I love it.
Yeah.
It's fun.
So,
It's good fun.
Well, Vito, do you have any closing thoughts before we get to the end of the episode? I'll do you and then give Dangy a chance to say some final words for everybody.
No, I think if you're not in a good Orna community, let this be the little push that you need. Make it happen. You got this.
Yeah, have to
Very
echo,
cool.
echo
So-
that. Jump into something, jump into main Discord, jump into these guys' Discord, jump in somewhere. There's a lot of friendly people out there playing this game. It's got to be one of the most en masse wholesome communities, I think. Orna is pretty good versus other games I've played anyway. So yeah, get into a community. Guys, it's been amazing. Thank you so much for having me. I actually want to jump on again sometime. Like this is good fun just to talk other stuff. But yeah, we talked Conqueror's Guild, we talked some other stuff from the update and like guild leaderboards. It's gonna be cool. And just had a great time. You guys are legends. Thank you.
So I want to do a kind of a pullback to when we were first starting to talk about doing episodes. You had kind of suggested, like, maybe I just come on and talk about some Northern Forge stuff and then hop off and you guys finish the episode. How do you feel after? Isn't this like, this just works? We can just bullshit about stuff. Like, you don't have to talk just about spoilers. We can just nerd out about the game.
Nah, this has been really good. It's been quite relaxing, quite disarming. It's been fantastic. I do have a tendency to just keep chatting, so I'm conscious that I don't want to derail the fantastic product that you guys already have. But no, this has been awesome, and I'd love to come back.
And you got to see the orange Vito hat,
It's beautiful,
which is legendary. Vito, have you named your hat yet?
No. I think we should though. That could be a fun thing. I like how it looks almost like 2D because it's so reflective. But no name yet. What do you think, Omnis? What would you name my hat?
I don't know yet. We'll have to think about it.
I'm thinking
maybe another. Maybe that will be a future icebreaker. We'll maybe next episode the icebreaker will be, well, how would you name Vito's hat? We can present it to the listeners too. So
call it the
we got some options. So I think it's time. I'm going to close out this episode. This has been a blast, Dangy. I'm glad that we finally got to do this. And then we actually have video for the listeners or watchers. And so I'm really excited for this to come out. And listeners, I will just say the most OP thing that you can do in the Ornation is have a perfect balance of hosts that go mustache to medium beard to wizard beard. Later, nerds.
See you around the way, Vessel.